Right, peace to the family of Uhuru, of Barigani. Welcome to another episode of We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club. I'm Ikemba Ojore, host of We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club.
Peace, everyone. This is Frank, host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series aspect of WCC every Sunday.
Right on. And we'll be joined by Natasha, who's the third speaker. I don't even. I got my tongue tied, man. But Natasha is going to be joining us in a second as well. So looking forward to having this discussion. I appreciate everybody too who's going to be tapping in, whether you're tapping in now or tapping in later. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like. Make sure you share, so that we can get as many people to be a part of these important discussions as possible. We Charge Colonialism, anti-colonial, Pan-African think and do think. Think and do think, because we want to do more than just have these discussions, right? How do we implement? How do we put into practice these ideas that we develop as we have these discussions here, and as we put out as much information and research as we can? Make sure you visit our website as well, wechargecolonialism.org. And so at WCC Podcast and Book Club, we have these discussions around the experiences that African people have as it pertains to colonialism. And I feel like this is the most important thing we should be discussing, because we're talking about our liberation and our freedom. So this should be part of our discussion 24/7, every day. If we're not talking about liberating ourselves from colonialism, then that's a serious problem. If our actions aren't towards liberating ourselves from colonialism, then that's an issue. Hey, welcome, Sister Natasha. You want to introduce yourself?
Peace, everyone. My name is Natasha. I'm part of the Northeast Political Prisons Coalition. Yeah.
Right on. You see, we keep it, straight to the point, man. So we want to get into. We usually start off with our weekly roundup, and then we move into our book. And today we're continuing with Nkrumah's. Actually, I'm gonna put that link too in the chat. We're continuing with Nkrumah's The Revolutionary Path, and I will put the link to the book in the chat shortly. And so we'll be picking up on chapter 2 in that book. So I'm gonna let one of you guys start off. I'll take the next one, and then we, do it like that. Cypher, or Natasha, do you have a story?
Yeah, I do. But Frankie, you can go first.
Sure. I can go first. All right. So, all right. So what I have here again, we go to Burkina Faso. There was another coup attempt to one of our revolutionary leader, Ibrahim Traoré. According to the news, the coup should have taken place on the 14th of January. And it became a failed coup attempt. So I think that's the 5th or the 4th one to get rid of him. And of course, every time these things happen in Africa, we always have Africans who also play part to the direction of the colonialists. So let me just read it. I might either allow the video to play so that everybody can just listen to. So let me just play the video instead of me reading it. Let me just play the video so that we can just listen to it.
This is our commercial break right here. It's African news. You probably gotta just let it play. But make sure smash that like, share. I just put the link to the book Revolutionary Path in the chat. If you're viewing on Instagram, you can come over to Facebook or YouTube and get that link. See if I can put it. I don't think I'm able to put the link in Instagram.
The spokesperson for the government of Burkina Faso denounced Thursday what he called an umpteenth attempt at destabilizing the Sahelian nation. He said a coup attempt had been foiled. Citing findings of preliminary investigations, Rimtalba Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo said the coup was scheduled to take place on January 14th. He added that a network of military officers, some retired, some active, as well as civilians and activists, conspired to destabilize the institutions of Burkina Faso. The network allegedly sought to target citizens' watch bodies to sway the people's support for the ruling patriotic movement for the safeguard and restoration. Foreign funding was being unblocked for the accused to proceed with their plan, the statement further reads. An undisclosed number of people were detained for questioning and technical analysis were carried out. The government spokesperson said intelligence services and defense forces were vigilant. It is the fourth coup attempt authorities in Burkina Faso have claimed to have thwarted since Captain Ibrahim Traoré took power by force in September 2022.
All right, so that's it there. I could have read.
They trying to get our brother, man.
Man, they're really on here. It's not easy, man. It's not easy. I mean, just imagine, this is the fourth coup attempt. Okay, so it's not easy. Like, he really got to. I know he's trying his best. When it comes to the security system, because this has been a fourth coup attempt, and all those that have always been involved have always been caught. So that means the security system is on tight. They should try as much, to even tighten it more, because as more and more coup attempt continue to go on and they fail, that's how they're going to continue as well, to build themselves up, because who knows, maybe the fifth one could work, or the sixth one could work, or the seventh one could work. So who knows? Why, only in country where people are fighting for the liberation, these coups are happening against the people. I mean, why can't it happen in how they call it where's this country where the recent one that just happened, where they changed it and they said, where's the name of this country? I don't even close
in Africa.
Yeah, the recent coup that happened.
What,
But
Niger?
it was organized. No, the one that was organized by the West and all of those to remove Aliyo Bongo. Anyway, the country is there. But yeah, so why is not happening? Gabon. I mean Gabon. Why is not happening in Gabon?
Mm-hmm.
But it's only happening, to places where people are fighting for true liberation. It's only happening to places where people no longer want Western influence. People don't want to be subjugated to Western influence. Why is that happening? To Gabon, places like Gabon, but only in places where people are fighting for true liberation. So again, it's gonna be the fifth one, the fifth coup attempt gonna come. All right, it's going to come. It's going to happen. Why is it only happening in places where people are fighting for liberation? It's not going to happen to other places, even apart from Gabon, but places where leaders are answerable to the West, right? To America, to France, to England. It's not happening to those places. Let's just forget about even Gabon, right? Let's forget about Gabon. But places where leaders are not answerable to America, to Europe, right? To France. These are the places it is happening. Okay, so this go to remind us that we have to be strong, and we can only do it together. And the only reason why it's not really they are not succeeding in these places, or especially in Mali, right, or Burkina Faso, is because the people are together. And this is what happens when we are together. It's very hard to influence our system when we are together. When we are divided, we have no system. When we are together, we are united, we have a system. And that's why the Europeans have system, because they are united. All right. That's why even America has system. And now when we talk about America, right, we are not talking about Black America. We know you are not part of the system. All right. So we are not part of the system. When we're talking about Americans, we are not part of the Americans. All right. Because we are not part of that system that is built for the Americans. When we say the Americans, we are referring to the 1776 Declaration of Independence, where they say all men are free and equal. Meanwhile, Black people were not part of that men. So when we are saying American, we are going back to that time period. So we are not part of that American. We are still fighting for our freedom, our liberation, right? So again, that goes to say is that if you are a leader in Africa and you are not answerable to Europe or the West, you become a threat and you have coup against you. That is to say, we have to unite. And again, this going to fall in line with what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Okay, if you look at the schedule that is being made for tomorrow, when you see that schedule, it fall in line with it, where I said the World Bank, okay, is the same as foreign military, okay, on the African continent. All right, and then you also see it says the crash of the United Nations. So as we speak currently, the United Nations headquarters have been closed and have now been opened. So we're going to look into that tomorrow. Why it been closed? Since December, it been closed. And they themselves came out to say they are struggling financially. All right. So if the United Nations is struggling financially, what does that mean? The crash of the United Nations is at hand. Now, we're going to look at why is it struggling financially, right? So if it is struggling financially, it is useless for United Nations army to be an African nation or to be in other people nation seeking to fight for peace. It is useless if they are struggling financially, right? We're going to look into that as well, why they are struggling and why it is the doom or the end of the United Nations. All right, and that also fall in line again with Africa, because they are finding it difficult to loot our resources, right? The only reason why these organizations are functioning, right, are in power or are in place, it is because of the resources that they're exploiting. All right, so the Middle East, they are not allowing the West or the United States to just go in again to exploit, right? So these are the reasons. So if they are not getting your resources, how are they going to maintain their power? How are they going to maintain their hegemony? Or how are they going to maintain their organizations? All right. So it is the same with African nations that are holding on and saying no to Western organization, right? That's how these organizations are failing. So that is part of the failure of the United Nations, because even in DRC Congo, that they have been there looting for so many years, DRC Congo is telling the United Nations to leave. Okay, so if they are leaving, that means they are going to be financially constrained. All right, so Mali is saying that Mali have told them to leave, and now Niger, one of the richest nations on planet Earth, have also told them to leave. And so we have to look at it like, they are not just closing. The headquarters is not just closed because no workers. All right, it is because these countries that they exploit, these countries are telling them to leave. So we are going to look at it and we are going to look at all of these things and why we should expect many coups to take place.
Nah, appreciate you bringing this story, man, and giving this analysis. I think one of the things we have to understand is like this transition. Uh, when we overturn this relationship that we have with the Europeans, um, the transition is going to be rough, and that there's going to be Africans that are going to be resisting this change. They're not going to be able to, um, uh, they're not going to be willing to go through the changes and the sacrifices that are necessary for us to be a self-determined people, to attain African power, to attain Black power. And this was the problem that Patrice Lumumba and Nkrumah, so many of our leaders had to face, right? Where there were Africans who had turned their backs on their own brothers and sisters. And these is because there's a segment within the African community that wants to continue to align themselves with the system of colonialism. And so that's a very real problem. Neo-colonialism, and Nkrumah, he told us about it. So yeah, we have to be prepared for that. I don't know, Natasha, you wanted to add anything?
Just in terms of thinking about repetition and how what's happening now, like when we're thinking about Gabon, or we're thinking about Niger, and just what's happening with other countries like Burkina Faso and places like that, wanting to throw off, like Frank was saying, colonial, the vestiges, or the leftover influence of colonialism, which is neo-colonialism today, just is part of like the repeating pattern. I think of the saying about like what's the who said it? I don't remember who said it, but it's about contradictions continuing to cycle through until the contradiction is resolved. And so how, this, when you see these things in particular, and the first story that Frank is talking about just reveals that if, people questioned whether or not colonialism was over, that it's a repetition of, fighting to end, colonialism, fighting to really gain your freedom, because it's not over. That's why, we have this repetition of, just like when you were giving the examples of Patrice Lumumba and Kwame Nkrumah, or Thomas Sankara, that you're going to have this struggle when you're trying to really go break free. And so I think for me, that's what I took away from the story, and what I'm thinking about, especially when thinking about things in terms of in our time, what is happening in our time, and how do we take lessons from what happened in the time before us, in similar ways, and actually like apply these lessons in our time today. So, and then the other thing is, when you were talking about, and Frank was talking about how you're going to have that resistance, I think that the resistance, a lot of people don't think about the resistance, or they want to do it without the resistance being there. But like you were saying, it's just part of the process. It's an inevitable thing. And I think one of the things to point out is, like, because I feel like a lot of people will accept the fact that this is a process if they can see a direct example. And I was thinking about how, even when people think about the United States as a settler colonial nation in general, though, but that when the United States was created, they fought the war, like they fought against the British, they fought the war. And essentially, those who had been part of the war are the ones who became the leaders of the country. And so when they talk about coups and illegitimate governments and all this other stuff, you don't consider, those, George Washington and the illegitimate presidents, because they, in a sense, you could say it was a coup, right? If that's what you're calling it. So you would call America the same thing. Don't reserve that word or phrasing or way of looking at things for Africa to try to delegitimize, what is happening. And that even after they, won the war, there was still, fighting between Britain and, America, Britain wanting to, have America be back in the place that it was before. And so history shows you that even, when you talk about Europeans, where people think like, oh yeah, no, Europeans did their thing and then it was like smooth sailing. No, it's that you still have that same process. So yeah, so they're, it's no different, when they try to make it seem like, African people are doing something that is, white people would never do, and it's wrong, and it's this and it's that. But you could say the same thing about the processes that brought about, the American government as it is.
No, that's a fact. I actually look out tomorrow. I'll have a article, putting out an article on our website, long overdue article. But I speak on what you just said, as far as just there being one set of rules that the imperialists have for themselves and another one for the colonized. And there's a piece in there where I talk about government oppression, the gelling, the movement, so as the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, and when Africans in this country, in America, was fighting for their rights, fighting for freedom, leaders were being jailed, leaders were being assassinated, members of the organizations were being jailed and assassinated, who were part of these movements. Anywhere else, they would call that genocide, right? If another group of people was doing that to another, oppressed and exploited people, they would call that genocide. So yeah, this is, one set of rules. And speaking about America and America history, I'm gonna jump into this story that I got. Nikki Haley, and I'm gonna just run through this. I'm gonna pull it up really quick and just read some of this. Nikki Haley, who's running for president on a Republican ticket, made some comments about America never being a racist country, and I thought that was, hilarious, but it just shows how psychopathic these colonizers are. And Nikki Haley, I mean, without really knowing her history, if you see her and you hear her name, Nikki Haley, you would think that she was a European, but she's actually Indian. Nimarata Ranhawa. And so that's what I'm gonna call her, Nimarata Ranhawa. She's probably been trying to run away from that all her life, right here in America. In racist America, she can't even, she rather go by Nikki Haley than Nimarata Ranhawa, the name that she was born with. And why is that? Was it because she thought she would be more accepted, known as Nikki Haley, in a racist country that she denies? But let me read some of this because let me scroll. Apologies. How is this look? Okay, there we go. Nikki Haley, in her own words, why America has never been a racist country. I'm going to read this really quick. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has drawn praise and criticism this week for her claim that the United States has never been a racist country. At a CNN town hall Thursday night, host Jake Tapper asked the Republican presidential candidate to clarify what she meant by the remark, noting that slavery was enshrined in the Constitution. Haley responded, she truly believes our founding fathers has had the best of intentions when they started, and we fixed it along the way. Here's a look at how Haley's response has evolved over the last week. We've never been a racist country. On Tuesday, the former governor gave an interview on Fox News where she was asked to respond to an MSNBC host comment about the Republican Party. Fox News host Brian Kill me, I don't know. Asked Haley if she was involved in a racist party. Haley responded, we're not a racist country. Brian, we've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No, but our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day. that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then. Our goal is to lift up everybody, not go and divide people on race or gender or party or anything else. We've had enough of that in America. And then in this article, they quote her talking about how being a brown girl in South Carolina. She called herself a brown girl in South Carolina. I couldn't get enough of it, man. But just a few, points that I had jotted down. When we look at America, America has historically, this is why history is so important. Like, America has historically created policies that prevented Africans from exercising the same rights and opportunities as Europeans in this country. Right there, like, that's racist. She wants to try to separate the country. She want to make it some sort of abstract thing and separate the country from the people. But you can't separate people from society. Like, when you talk about America, we're talking about America's society. Let me say, there's a lot to say in this, but let me just read this one thing. This is Sociology 101. A society is a system of interrelationships that connects individuals. I'm going to go down. One characteristic of societies, at least as sociologists see them, is that they are relatively enduring over time. For this to occur, societies require some degree of common culture, a set of shared values to guide behavior. No society could exist without culture, and conversely, no culture could exist without society. Right. And so when we talk about American culture, society, right? American culture, is it just racist? No, there's other things too, right? It's imperialist as well, right? So there's other characteristics that it has. But yes, race, being a racist country, that is part of its makeup. It's part of its DNA, right? There's a lot I want to say, but I'm gonna leave it there though. Y'all have any thoughts on?
You want to go, Natasha, or you want me to come in?
Nimarata Rahawa.
All right, so it's really kind of funny and very serious that anytime these people want position or want powers, right? First, what they do is to fix the white narrative first, is to satisfy their masters first. That's the first thing, because if you don't satisfy your master, first of all, they won't give you the platform, because they have the platform, they have the avenue, right, to give it to you to rise on the stage or on that occasion. So first of all, you first have to make it right with your slave master. Once you make it right with them, and by making it right is to deny your people. That's the first thing you have to do. You first have to deny your people, deny yourself, and make it right with them. And then later on, you can come to your people and fix it with them when you have denied them everything, and then you accept your slave master that, what you did was fine, was okay, it's part of life, it's part of society, and that's why we are at this stage. Once you do that and make them look right, don't make them look guilty, and then you can come back to your people, because you need a platform, first of all, okay, to put yourself out there. And that's what exactly she's doing. And that's what they do. Even Joe Biden did it. All right. Joe Biden did it when he said, if you don't vote for me enough, you are not black, you are not African. All right. And Kamala Harris too did it. Even Obama too did it. All right. And when he got there, then he said, I did not become president for black people. Kamala Harris too did the same thing. That's what they do. All right. So, and it just goes to say, right? This is what it is. There is difference between justice and forgiveness. If I forgive you because you did something against me, that does not mean I have received justice. That is not justice. Just because I forgave you, it's not justice. And that's how most of the time, right? And all of the time, not even most of the time, but all of the time, that's how the European or the Westerner does, both here and back home on the African continent, in every black nation, The moment you start posturing, okay, these European, these colonizer, the enslaver, the moment you start cautioning their behavior, all right, and making them look guilty, that's the time that we come in to talk about, for God so loved the world that we all need to live in this world in harmony as one family, right? That's how the one you see justice, forgive them, and think that we are all one. Okay, we all live in a global society, the fake global society. They make you think that way, and then when they make you think that way, then they feel that justice have been served. But when it comes to them, justice is not about forgiveness. Justice is about giving back what you took, equivalent to giving back what you took. Even if you have to give your life, you have to give your life. To them, that is justice. And that is why today, we have a lot of Black people in prison. We have a lot of Black people still in captivity. You have to give back. That's why we have a lot of Black people, right, still giving back to these colonizer. All right. Now, when they were taking, when Black people were fighting for freedom, they came to Black people. Okay, you want your freedom? We are not going to say, okay, we live in global society. What happened? We have to give back. Black people sold their freedom, okay, by giving them reparation. Haiti, okay, even in America here, they gave them reparation. They did not say, oh, let us go to church and pray so that God, we can live in harmony, God can forgive us. No, Black people pay it back to them. Black people work on their plantation, all right, in order to be free. All of those things. So why, when it comes to Black people, freedom, all right, or justice, then they want us to go to the church. All right, even the media do it. Sometimes when things happen where Black people are voicing out, and then that's the time they say, where are the clergymen? Where are the churches? Why are they not talking to the Black community? Where are the pastors? Where are the deaconess or the deacons? All of these things, they bring it out. So what I'm trying to say here is, just because we forgave, we are saying we forgive the Westerners, right? That does not mean we don't want justice. Forgiveness is different from justice. I'm forgiving you because I want to move on and be moving on. That doesn't mean I have received justice, and that doesn't mean we have received justice. That doesn't mean white people or European should not give us justice for slavery, should not give us justice for colonization, should not give us justice for systematically, oppressing us and killing us and looting our resources, right? That doesn't mean we do not want justice, even though we want to move on. But we moving on is to say we are going to unite. We are uniting our African nations, our African community, our African race. That's what it means. We are moving on. But it doesn't mean we do not want justice or we are going to stop fighting for justice. And that's why this lady and most of these people that come on a platform seeking to fight for a position of power, what they do first is to deny their race, to deny their people, and accept white and validation by denying their people. So come out to say America is not a racist country when she herself knows. If America is not a racist country, why is she changing her name? That's the first thing. She knows that if she go by her birth name, the name she was born by, she's going to go nowhere. She's not going to get white validation because just by your name, it means that you are not accepted. So the fact that she's not going by her birth name, by her given name, it means that she's not accepted in a society where she wants to run. So she had to change her name to an European name. She had to make it look like an European name in order to be accepted. That alone in itself is racism.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that, add on really quickly, that you can't. I mean, I think that this rhetoric, this is just talk, and it just speaks to where the level of being dumbed down or stupidity that these politicians feel that America has been able to achieve with the masses of people. Because when you think that you can say this out loud in general, where we'll be broadcasted all over, you really do think that the masses of the people have been sufficiently dumbed down and stupefied. And so therefore, when you say these things, they're not going to know enough to be able to critically think about what you're saying, or even combat or go against what you're saying. And so I think, that's important for us to think about, one. And two, also along with the other false things that you're saying. Oh, we don't want to see, sow division or cause division within the country, which is another thing that, has been used by both Democrats and Republicans. But that's another falsehood, because America has never been united. Not before the Civil War, not after the Civil War. Black people in the United States have always been, before the Civil War and after the Civil War, up until today, not a part of the United States in the way that they think that they are. You have always been outside of the system. That's why when they lynched you, hung you, created Jim Crow laws, when they're keeping you out, overturning, let's say, for example, like recently, what was the court case they overturned? The affirmative action things that, things like that, and and who's bringing those up, and the housing discriminate, I'm not going to go through and name the laundry list, but it shows you clearly that it's never been united. Because a united country, place that is really united, or where, America in particular, if African people were really united within America, those things wouldn't be happening. So that's just another false narrative that depends on people being dumbed down, because just even your assertion that there is a unity is ridiculous when you can look and see, what is happening. And so that's why I think, it's always important to just think about, and for people to focus on what people do, not what they say, because you're going to say, oh, we're united, there's no racism. But just look, like Frank was saying, look at the person's actions, see if they match up with what they're saying, where, you have to change your name, but there's no racism. So what are you doing then? You're with the Republican Party. What are the things that they're doing when you're saying that there's no racism, there's no division, but what is it that you're doing? So, these people just count on the campaign of, dumbing down the masses to have worked. And that's what they, that's how they see it. And so they say outlandish things.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about a post that I want to put out, sort of like a social media post to speak to this, because I think it should be equivalent to someone that denies the Holocaust. Just think if she would have said, the Holocaust never happened, right? The outrage. I'm sorry. The outcry, the backlash that she would have received for making a statement like that. And here you have
outrage, like you said too. There would have been outrage.
There would have definitely been some outrage for making that statement. Why isn't there? And not to say that there hasn't been people saying something, but it's not the same. She's going to continue to run for president. She should be pushed into oblivion for making a statement like that. Because it's just short of saying that slavery never happened. You're saying this is someone who is non-African, who did not have the same, whatever racism she experienced, she did not have the same experiences as African people, right? This is someone who can change your name and pass for white. We're born with European names over here, and still can't even get by. Like, we born. This is somebody who whose family, who gave her birth name is Nimarata Ranhawa. So this is, I think this is serious, and I think it should be equivalent. Someone is saying racism, this country has never been racist. you know, that's a ridiculous statement. And then she said good intentions. That's another point. Last thing I'll say about this, she said, you know, that the founding fathers had good intentions. I don't care about your intentions, and these good intentions were for who? These good intentions weren't for Africans, you know. You know, oh, it's and this was sort of like an excuse or a rationale that they would use to keep Africans enslaved, you know, because we're civilizing them. You know, if they weren't enslaved by us, you know, they'll be running wild in Africa and so forth, right? Like, so they would use that rationale. But you know, good intentions. So the person who, because the person had good intentions, we don't call out the slavery that existed or the racism that existed because they had good intentions. And again, good intentions for who? Good intentions for Europeans.
Exactly. That's the point. Like, I even want to get at, like, good intention for what? Good intention by raping people, by feeding them to alligator, feeding their babies, live baby to alligator. That's good intention. You know, castrating people, that's good intention. Burning people alive, that's good intention. Like throwing people overboard on the sea, that's good intention. Raping, you know, their husband, wife in front of them, that's good intention. Like making people to work for 400-500 years, that's good intention. Up to today, slavery have never yet ended. Slavery still continue. That's good intention. And the building work for yourself, that's good intention. And denying the people that pay the work, that's good intention. The people that build the country, build a society for you, and those people are still being, how they call it, into slavery. And and then you come have the opportunity, but disregard the people that build a society for you to come and have that opportunity, while the people that build a society is still struggling. And you say good intention, you know, I don't know, like that's an insult to say it is, you know, it was a good intention. Even the founding father that she talked about, those people has slave, those people have African women that they use specifically for sex slave, just to have sex with them any way they want to, have experiment with them. Like, just think about it. Okay, someone having sex with you as an experiment in any way they want to, whether you consent to it or not, and you say good intention about founding father, those evil founding father of yours, you call them good intention.
Yeah, like I said, you know, she's very dangerous, man. And I actually, she just gave me the idea for my next article, which is going to be America has always been a racist country. So look out for that. You know, I don't know, Natasha. I don't know if I can do this in 1,500 words, man. This is going to be this is going to be tough. So look, it's 9:44. I think we could say your story, Natasha.
Yeah, I can do it next week.
Or do we want to do the story? Nah, we should do the book. We supposed to do the book.
Yeah, I can do it next week.
All right, so we'll use the last 15 minutes, and you know this what we're doing today is Nkrumah's declaration, which is short anyway. So I mean, I was going to go into chapter 3 a bit, but I think since it's 15 minutes, we'll just do the declaration. Is it on screen? You guys see it? Make sure. Yeah, all right, cool. All right, so this is Nkrumah's Revolutionary Path. I did put the link in the chat, but you can also find it in the description just in case you don't see it in the chat. So it's chapter 2. When I arrived in England in 1945, after 10 years of work and study in the USA, the first person I met was George Padmore, a West Indian journalist. It's another giant. He was then busily engaged together with T.R. McCunnon and Peter Abrahams in preparing for the Pan-African Congress, due to be held in Manchester in October of that year. Within a week, I had become joint secretary with Padmore of the organization committee. We worked long hours making arrangements for the Congress and sending letters to various organizations throughout the world explaining its purpose. There have been 4 previous Pan-African Congresses, These were attended mainly by intellectual and other bourgeois elements of African descent living either in the USA or the Caribbean. The first Pan-African Congress was held in Paris in 1919. The second and third were held in London in 1921 and 1923, respectively. The fourth took place in New York in 1927. The fifth Pan-African Congress was different. For the first time, there was a strong worker and student participation, and most of the over 200 delegates who attend came from Africa. They represented reawakening African political consciousness, and it was no surprise when the Congress adopted socialism as its political philosophy. All right. The Congress was held under the joint chairmanship of Dr. W.B. Du Bois, an Afro-American scholar and one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Peoples, and Dr. Peter Miller, a doctor of medicine from Guyana. Two declarations were addressed to the imperial powers, one written by Du Bois and the other by myself. Both asserted the right and the determination of colonial peoples to be free and condemned capitalism. Colonial peoples were urged to organize into political parties, trade unions, cooperatives, and so on in order to achieve their political freedom and thereby to make possible economic improvement for the masses. After the Congress, a working committee was set up with Du Bois as chairman and myself as general secretary to organize the implementation of the program agreed in Manchester. The Congress headquarters was to be in London. Soon colonial liberation movements were underway in Africa, but it was not until after Ghana's independence in 1957 that Pan-Africanism moved to Africa, its real home, and Pan-African Congresses were held for the first time on the soil of a liberated African state. This is a declaration to the colonial peoples of the world, approved and adopted by the Pan-African Congress held in Manchester, England, October 15th to the 21st, 1945, by Kwame Nkrumah. We believe in the rights of all people to govern themselves. We affirm the right of all colonial peoples to control their own destiny. All colonies must be free from foreign imperialist control, whether political or economic. The peoples of the colonies must have the right to elect their own government, a government without restrictions from a foreign power. We say to the peoples of the colonies that they must strive for these ends by all means at their disposal. The object of imperialist powers is to exploit. By granting the right to the colonial peoples to govern themselves, they are defeating that objective. Therefore, the struggle for political power by colonial and subject peoples is the first step towards and a necessary prerequisite to complete social, economic, and political emancipation. The Fifth Pan-African Congress therefore calls on the workers and farmers of the colonies to organize effectively. Colonial workers must be in the front lines of the battle against imperialism. The Fifth Pan-African Congress calls on the intellectuals and professional classes of the colonies to awaken to their responsibilities. The long, long night is over. By fighting for trade union rights, the right to form cooperatives, freedom of the press, assembly, demonstration, and strike, freedom to print and read the literature which is necessary for the education of the masses, you will be using the only means by which your liberties will be won and maintained. Today, there's only one road to effective action, the organization of the masses. Yeah, so that is the declaration, a powerful declaration. I think, one of the things I appreciate in this fifth Pan-African Congress, it really shows how the Pan-Africanist movement was at the vanguard of the independence. I know it's flag independence, but this movement to end formal colonialism in Africa, right? Because that was the intentions. And of course, we can talk about how the African Revolution was betrayed. But from its very inception, you can see at this Fifth Pan-African Congress what the objectives and goals were for Africa and for African people. And just appreciation. It was just really seeing African people from everywhere. We're talking about the West Indies. They mentioned people from the United States, people from Africa. It was held in Manchester. That's Pan-Africanism. That's the history of Pan-Africanism. But I know we now 50. Did y'all have any thoughts?
I think, definitely just quickly to add on to what you were saying, I think it's definitely important And, even going back to what Kwame Nkrumah said in the Declaration, where he talks about, having the freedom to print and read literature, in which is necessary for the education of the masses, that the fact that Pan-Africanism is, like set aside and marginalized and, looked upon as something, unnecessary or irrelevant today, really speaks to this lack of the education of the masses, in which you have the freedom to print and read literature that is necessary for the education of the masses, because we understand that they've hidden much of what we've written, whether it's archival things or not, whether it's through media, but in general, a lot of what the history would show for people today to understand the importance of Pan-Africanism and to continue on the path of Pan-Africanism has been distorted or in plain sight, just erased and hidden, so that people don't know, and therefore today look at Pan-Africanism not for what it truly is and has done, as you were pointing out, Kimba, but as something that was minuscule, that didn't really have much of an impact, that these people were just ridiculous. And so that just goes to show how colonialism continues to work and continued to work after the independence that was gained by the African countries. But I also just the other thing that I thought about last thing was when he talked about having in the Declaration, the peoples of the colonies must have the right to elect their own government, a government without restrictions from a foreign power. And so when we look at today, the sanctions, the IMF, the World Bank, all of these things that are attached to the way that Africans are able to govern shows you that they're not making these decisions. And as we talk about a lot on the show, how you have the West still pulling the strings and still putting things in place to make African countries go the way that they want them to go. And even Frank's story today, right? Thinking about how, when, Africans are fighting to regain and really have political freedom, that you're going to have this fighting, and you're going to have Western backed, like we've seen time and time again across the world, in any place where, you had colonialism, Western powers creating different groups. Even today when people are talking about Israel and Hamas and all that other stuff, again, West in there too, creating, different groups, funding different groups in South America, in Africa, that are there to directly make sure that the government, one, doesn't succeed in putting forth its country, and putting its country and its people first, but doesn't succeed as a real true nation in general. Because when you think about who is allowed to govern and make decisions and make mistakes and grow in their own way, it's only Western countries. Because for some reason, when it comes to things that, human rights things, what they believe is right and wrong, it's always like, well, we think Africa is doing this wrong, so therefore we need to send some troops in there, we need to send some NGOs in there, we need to watch them, we need to guide them, we need to be, their, in a sense, parents, to make sure that, they're doing what they're supposed to do, because they're doing wrong. If people were to say, if African people or any other people that are non-European in general was to say, well, we think, look at all the atrocities happening in America, in Europe, look at all this stuff that is happening, look what they're doing, all these human rights abuses, let's send a military campaign in there, let's put a base in there. People would think that's absurd. People would think that's going against the sovereignty and freedom of the country. But yet when they constantly say those things about Africa, everybody's in agreement. Everybody's supposed to be in agreement and line up, and most do, and think that is the way, because we need to show them, because they're such people who can't make the decision on their own. We need to put sanctions against them because they're not agreeing to this. And so I think what he's talking about here clearly still shows up today, and is proof of neocolonialism.
Yeah, in addition to that, right? From that memo that you just read and everything you guys said, it is clear even the enemies know it. Okay, the enemies know the greatest weapon of African is not by taking machinery to go fight them. They know that the greatest weapon that can defeat them is Pan-Africanism. That's the only weapon. And they themselves know, and that's why they said Negro unity is a threat to them. So when they said Negro unity, what they're trying to say here is Pan-Africanism is a threat to them. And that's why, because first of all, let's look at this, right? It was also through Pan-Africanism, like you read from the book there, that Africans were able to gain shame independent. Okay. Now, where Nkrumah came from? Nkrumah came from collaboration with the African diaspora. If you look at the 90s, all right, I said the 60s, not the 90s, sorry. If you look at the 60s, right, coming all the way to independent from the 60 to 61st, because that's the time between the 60 to 1961. That's the time most African nations gained independent. All of those leaders, all right, came from the diaspora, interaction with the African in the diaspora, and most of those leaders participated with the Pan-African Congress that were taking place, or meetings taking place in various areas with among the diaspora African community. We talk about Jomo Kenyatta from Kenya. Okay, he came from there too. We talk about Ahmed Sekou Touré from Sierra Leone. He came from there. Okay, we talk about even Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso. He also came from there. All right, Lumumba came from there. So all of them had that a diaspora ideology. Okay, with the Pan-Africanism movement and the when they Amiga Cabral, Guinea-Bissau, all of them. Okay, they came from they came from a Pan-African ideology, a Pan-African background, and that's how they took that movement to the African continent to fight for independence. And they saw how forceful those people were. They saw how forceful those people and focus-minded those people were. Okay, so they know that the greatest weapon to defeat them, the enemies, is Pan-Africanism. And that's why they will always fight against the unification of Africans.
No, I appreciate that, and that's a fact, man. I mean, strength and unity. You know, the old adage, divide and conquer, when it comes to the strategy of the colonizer, still exists today. And how do we keep on falling for the same trick? You know, I mean, we know why. We don't have time to get into it right now, but we'll continue to get into it, you know, as we have these discussions. So, you know, appreciate everybody for tapping in. Those who are tapping in on Instagram, you know, Facebook, YouTube, you know, appreciate you all. Continue to like and share, and go back and check out some of the other discussions that we have on these topics. We'll be back here next week. I think next week we'll be back here regular time, 10 a.m. But, you know, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay updated. Again, thanks again for tapping in. We're going to continue with chapter 3 next week in this book, Revolutionary Path. So again, peace, Black power, continue to struggle, continue to organize. And, you know, liberation, make sure liberation is on your mind 24/7 as African people. Peace. Uhuru.
Peace.